Imagine a place where history is everywhere and the past refuses to quietly slip away into the pages of time. That's France today, a nation seemingly stuck, caught between the grandeur of its achievements and the stark reality of its present situation. You hear about France and you think of its power, its culture, and its influence. Liberté, égalité, fraternité. The ideals that shape the modern world. But is this reality? Or just a beautifully woven story? So let's ask ourselves, is France truly a superpower? Or a burning museum? How did we get here, where we replace the glamour of yesteryears with the problems of today? France might look like the shining city on a hill, but the world is changing faster than ever. And with it, the challenges that redefine what power really means. Yet for the average Parisian life is a daily dance between nostalgia and the hard edges of modern life challenges. So we have to wonder, is France full of life or just stubbornly alive? You see, when we talk about superpowers, we talk about influence and economic might, but also innovation and leadership in global affairs. Yet right now, France finds itself grappling with falling influence and a cultural identity at risk of being forgotten. So, is France still the beacon it used to be, or just light years away from it? Ladies and gentlemen, let's take a deeper dive into the heart of France, a nation often viewed through rose-tinted glasses. And yet, when you scratch under the surface, the picture isn't as pretty as the glossy brochures suggest. Now, here's where the narrative starts to unravel. For one, France is grappling with unemployment rates that make you question. In 2023, a whopping 8% of the labor force. For a developed nation like France, it's downright troubling. And then there's the economy, which has many people furrowing their brows. The GDP growth, a reflection of the country's vitality, has been sluggish. Does anyone remember Emily, a typical Parisian trying to make ends meet with multiple part-time jobs? It's a tale as old as time in France. And yet, this doesn't exactly scream superpower, does it? Then, we must consider its social fabric, the gaudy threads fraying at the edges. Tensions, as we all see, often boil over, leaving many to wonder if they can truly hold it all together. It's not just social unrest, but a culture battle, a fracture in the facade with no easy fix. So, how exactly does France, with all these issues, maintain its image? That's the question that needs answering. It's easy, sitting from the comfort of your living room, to think of France as this global powerhouse that sways the international political spheres with ease. But scratch the surface of this polished veneer, and you might discover that France isn't so much a superpower as it is a burning museum. Now hold on, what does that even mean? One might ask. Well, it's about a country drenched in heritage, but somehow stagnant and smoldering. Think about its cities. They're loaded with history, and yet these are not the bustling centers of innovation you might expect a superpower to possess. Take a walk down the Champs-Élysées and notice the blend of what was and what merely strives to be. Isn't it ironic? The country that brought us the Enlightenment, the revolution that echoed across continents, is now grappling with a fading modernity that just can't keep pace. Meet Jacques, a cafe owner whose father was also a cafe owner, and so were his grandfather and great-grandfather. You get the picture, legacy and tradition, but where's the change? France, what happened to progress? Let's dive deep into this question of whether France is still strutting around the global stage like a superpower. I mean, sure, it has a permanent seat on the UN Security Council, nuclear weapons, and a rich cultural heritage that makes its national pride bulge at the seams, but that's kind of like wearing the crown of the past to mask the present. Yet when we peel back the layers of nostalgia, we find a nation grappling with economic stagnation and fragmented politics. You see, France's economy, the backbone of any true superpower, isn't exactly winning any awards for growth. Take a look at their GDP compared to the rest of the EU. Now, remember Sabine, a single mother in Lille struggling to make ends meet despite working 2 jobs. Isn't it ironic? A superpower that can't supercharge the lives of its own citizens. But there's more to France's burning museum than economic woes. Politically, we see a country fiercely divided, teetering between extremes that hardly find common ground. And while protests light up the streets, the flames scorch not only the social fabric, but also the image of this so-called superpower. Now, let's dig into the heart of the matter. France is portrayed, or maybe self-declared, as a global force of cultural sophistication. But what lies beneath this romanticized crepe? Let's be honest, not all is well under the French sky. The country, once vibrant like Van Gogh's palette, can now feel like a burning museum. A classic that is no longer adding new pieces to its collection. France's military prowess, while impressive on paper, in reality, serves more as a ceremonial boast than as a deterrent. Consider this. While the budget is hefty and French technology is cutting edge, the deployment impact is often questioned. Not unlike our friend Jacques, who finds himself forgetting where he placed his once active passport, France has misplaced its global influence. Politically, the country's attempts at leadership in Europe have been, let's just say, less than unifying. Economic policies often tangle with bureaucratic red tape and innovation stagnates. So, we ask, is France marching towards the future or reminiscing about a past too long gone? All right, let's take a moment to really think about this whole France as a superpower idea. I mean, sure, France has a nuclear arsenal. But is that really all that makes a country powerful? Let's dig deeper. Economically speaking, France is, without a doubt, among the top in Europe. But peel back a layer, and you'll see all those strikes, protests, and yellow vest movements. Doesn't seem all that stable, does it? Then there's the political landscape. We can't ignore the rise of far-right sentiments, which are growing faster than a croissant bakes. And what about the social fabric? Riots and social unrest seem to be France's second nature. Honestly, who can forget how volatile it often is? Remember Pierre? He's just one of thousands of workers facing unemployment because factories just shut down or move off to cheaper territories. But let's switch gears and talk culture. France thrives on its culture, but isn't it just resting on past glories? The Louvre stays packed, but when was the last groundbreaking piece of art that came out that shifted global consciousness? So you get the picture. France is a museum. A grand, exquisite one, but burning nonetheless. Let's really dig into what it means for France to have this reputation and why some argue it's the burning museum in Europe. First off, we need to question the concept of a superpower. Is it just military might? Global influence? Economic prowess? Because if that's the case, France is lagging. Let's face it, France has an impeccable artistic pedigree, but the world has changed. In the age of technology, information, and global connections, can France keep pace? Take the highly educated Jean, who works tirelessly in the tech field. He's symbolic of the younger generation yearning to thrive in a world moving faster than France. Economically, France is grappling with challenges. Unemployment rates hover at uncomfortable levels, even though the official narrative paints a different picture. And culturally, the influence is undeniable. But what relevance does it hold in today's digital era? So, there it is. France is at a crossroad, a beautiful, historic nation in search of its role in a new world order. We're trained to think of France as this romantic powerhouse, contributing globally with fashion, cuisine, and diplomacy. But beneath the shine, there's a different story. Can we still call it a superpower while it struggles internally? Dig a little deeper, and you find a nation caught in the past, much like a museum clinging to its glorious relics. Yet museums, as we know, aren't about growth and innovation. They're about preservation. Is France as a nation trapped in preservation mode? Consider its economy. For many, it's like watching a beautiful painting decay year after year. Taxes are sky high and growth has become stagnant. The youth unemployment rate? Alarmingly high. Meet Louis, a graduate with a degree in engineering, yet struggles to find a job. He dreams of innovation, but faces a system mired in bureaucracy. And yes, social challenges are mounting. Protests seem endless. Frankly, they've become part of the landscape. Are these just growing pains? Or symptoms of deeper issues? France's education system, once the pride of the nation, is facing challenges too. Critics argue the old ways stifle creativity and don't prepare students for today's global market. So, where does that leave us in assessing its superpower status? Can France rise again, or is it truly just a magnificent museum burning? France is a country that conjures images of romantic landscapes, historic landmarks, and cultural sophistication. But how often do we pause to consider whether it's a superpower or merely a burning museum? Let's dig into this. France still attracts millions of tourists who marvel at its art and history, but is that all it has to offer? The idea of France as a superpower remains in question. Its economy often struggles amidst global competition. Consider Jean-Pierre, a vendor by Notre Dame, always ready with stories about the old days. But he worries about the decline in French influence. Politically, France asserts itself as a leader in Europe, but when did it last lead a global initiative? Listening to its activists, we hear echoes of colonial guilt and cries for change. Industrially, it struggles to compete with emerging economies. Yes, it's a force in fashion and luxury, but in technology, not so much. In the tech world, it's a museum, not a vanguard. So we ask again, is France truly a superpower or just a burning museum? You know, when we think of France, we imagine romance, art, and high culture. But hold up, did anyone check if that image still holds true? Seriously, France is often seen as a global powerhouse. But is it really? Let's dive deeper. Here's the deal. Economically speaking, France has its burdens. The national debt reaches sky-high numbers, and just imagine a tourist named Jean-Pierre who loves his country but feels the pinch every single day. And unemployment, oh boy, hasn't been a shining star. So what's going on? Don't forget the social turbulence. For years, we've seen waves of strikes, protests, and up in arms over reforms. It's almost as if France is shouting to be heard from behind the museum glass. Yet, amidst this chaos, the history and the culture still dazzle the world. How do you reconcile that? In this crucial moment, France stands as a spectacle, like a burning museum. So where does it go next? Will it drift into the past or find its way to a renewed global stage? If you've ever strolled through the cobblestone streets of Paris, you'll know just how quaint and charming they can be. You feel like you've stepped back into another era, but that's exactly the point. In reality, France clings to its past like an old, dusty museum. And here's where we start to see the cracks in this beautiful facade. France, you see, once stood as a world power, dominating international politics and economy. But today, is it more museum than superpower? The numbers, quite frankly, don't lie. Take the French economy, for example. It's been battling stagnation, and unemployment remains high. For many young people, this legendary land of art and culture is a challenge rather than a dream. And there's more. The political landscape is incredibly tumultuous. You've got protests regularly erupting in cities across the country. Are these mere growing pains, or is something deeper at play here? Consider the influence France once had in Africa and the Middle East. It's dwindled significantly, replaced by other powers like China and the US. So, where does this leave France? In geopolitics, it sometimes feels as if they're relegated to the sidelines. But amid all this, there's a character like Camille, a historian who sees the world not through the lens of power, but through preservation. Is France content with being a custodian of its own past? These are big, powerful questions that deserve our attention. We've spent quite some time unraveling the grand tapestry of France, that rich heritage thrumming with history and contradictions. And after all this, what are we left with? A superpower? Or a museum burning slowly as it clings to past glories? Our epic journey through France's intricate story has shown us one thing: truth is multi-layered. Look at the economy. It's stagnating. The unemployment rate is stubbornly high. Even young Achille, who once dreamed of opportunity in tech, finds himself in someone else's corner cafe, pouring espresso. And culture, it's ever dynamic, a patchwork of history and modern challenge, losing little battles. Say what you want, the societal fabric is stretching thin. Government promises remain just promises. Are they steering this ship to a bright horizon? Or simply trying to stay afloat? Here's the kicker. The real question to ask is this: can France rise from being an awe-inspiring museum to a force truly bending the future? Or will it forever remain aflame with past brilliance, lost in its delusions of grandeur?